We need to be able to execute the fundamentals on offense, defense, and special teams.
They're going to run a fake, and Rutgers is not fooled. It's blocked. They've done it again.
And then do it over and over and over again.
They're coming. It's blocked.
Because the team that does it better is usually the team that wins.
Live from Quaker Steak and Lube on US 1 in Edison, this is the Kyle Flood Show. Your chance to talk with the head coach of the Scarlet Knights. The Kyle Flood Show is also brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world, and by Pepsi. Live in the moment. The beat starts at Pepsi.com. Pepsi, live for now. To be part of the show, call 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-356-6344. Now, let's go live to Quaker Steak and Lube in Edison. Alongside Coach Flood and Eric LeGrand, here's the voice of the Scarlet Knights, Chris Carlin.
A new season, already a win under Rutgers' belt, and a new home for the Kyle Flood Show. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us at Quaker Steak and Lube on Route 1 here in Edison as we get set for the first 2015 edition of the Kyle Flood Show. Rutgers coming off a win in their opener, 63-13 over Norfolk State. Chris Carlin alongside Eric LeGrand. Good to see you, my friend.
Always good to be here, trying to get some burgers and some french fries.
I think you will be able to accomplish that. And, of course, joining us is the head coach of the Scarlet Knights, and that's Kyle Flood. How are you, Coach?
I'm doing great, and a lot of familiar faces here tonight that have made their way over to the Quaker Steak and Lube, and we appreciate that. And Eric, I appreciate you coming back, and if all you charge is a few cheeseburgers, you're a cheap date, so we're going to be all right.
I like it.
I'll make up the rest of that, Eric. Anyway, we've got your opportunity to be a part of the program tonight. If you're in attendance here at Quaker Steak and Lube, you can see right in front of us that we're going to have a microphone set up, so please come up, ask your question for Coach Flood throughout the course of the next hour.
We got to get some clarification, I think, for all the people that are maybe first-time attendees of the show or of the restaurant. What is the official name of the Quaker Steak and Lube chicken? Does he have a name?
Coop.
Cool.
Coop.
All right.
All right.
Like Super Coop, like Marcus Cooper.
Very nice.
There you go.
There he is. Coop's loving it. We'll see if he's got a question
All right,
before the end of the night. We want him to certainly fire up the crowd, and we're thrilled that everybody is here. And that's a bizarre dance. But look, hey,
not every day you get to hang out with a dancing chicken. So this is
well, it looks like we will for the next several Wednesdays.
Got
Coach.
two mascots here, so I like it.
That's right.
We want you to be a part of the program, as we said. You can ask your question. If you're in attendance, come on up front. We'll get you in line. See our man Jimmy in the black Rutgers shirt. Also, you can give us a call at 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-356-6344. You can also tweet us your questions at Rutgers Radio. That's at Rutgers Radio on Twitter. As we said, the Scarlet Knights opened with the 50-point win over Norfolk State. So, Coach, your assessment of the season-opening victory on Saturday?
I think one of the things that I really thought we did a nice job of was getting better as the game went on. We had some young players out there for the first time, and when you put a true freshman on the field for the first time, hold on to your hat, because there's always going to be some interesting things that happen, and I experienced it as a position coach, and now I've experienced it as a freshman, and we certainly had some of those moments in the first half. But teams that ultimately compete for championships get better as the season goes on, and they need to get better as the game goes on. They need to learn through the game. I thought our staff did an excellent job coaching some of those young players through the game, and I thought by the second half we were playing pretty good football.
And how important is it to get those reps on film so you can evaluate them, and for them to get in those meeting rooms with them and try to work with them and get them better week in and week out?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing like game day. There's nothing like it. You can practice for a year if you wanted to. Ultimately, when you go out there in High Point Solutions Stadium for the first time as a player, it's a different experience. And Norfolk State was a very well-coached football team. Latrell Scott does a nice job. It's his first game there, but he's had a lot of success as a head coach. So they did some really good things schematically that we'll learn from. But those young players now, just like Eric just said, have the ability to watch themselves on film. And there's nothing more valuable as a teaching tool than being able to do that.
How did you feel that some of those first-timers fared for their first time under the light, so to speak?
I thought they did a good job. I really did. And, I've gotten asked a couple times this week about my expectations for them. And my expectations are just that they continue to work and get better. I know they're talented players. So if they'll work and get better as the season goes on, they're going to be more than effective.
And how valuable you think it is now for them getting playing time going forward now as they continue to get older, of course, this year, but how much playing time they're actually going to have in their career here on the Banks?
Absolutely, especially some of those young guys in the secondary. I know we'll get to the next game coming in a little bit, but they're going to be challenged in a little different way this week, and the fact that they got a game under their belt, that'll help.
Let's get into some of the individual positions. The one that everybody always wants to talk about first, and that's quarterback. And you had an opportunity to get both guys a considerable amount of playing time on Saturday. How do you evaluate both Chris Laviano and Hayden Reddick?
They made it really hard on me. They really did. To the credit of both those players, they really did a nice job. And I really thought 7 to 10 days into training camp, somebody would separate. There would be a definitive answer to the question who will be the starting quarterback, and we would move forward. But that didn't happen. And that's a credit to them because it wasn't for lack of performance. It's because they both were performing at a high level. So I let the competition go on. And then when you got the opportunity to see them both live in a game, that becomes part of the resume as well. So, we look at the body of work. I'm really pleased that Hayden and Chris, I feel like we've got two quarterbacks we can win with. But ultimately we have to pick a starter. And we felt that Chris Laviano would give us the best opportunity to be 1-0 this week, so that's why he's our starting quarterback. And now we move forward with him as the starting quarterback.
And how does that feel? I want to know. When you have two guys in your gun as a confidence, with the coach, if you got a guy out there, say Laviano was struggling, or if you don't want to say he gets injured, but knowing that you have somebody back there that can, come in the game and handle the situation.
It makes you feel good. And what makes you feel even better is the fact that you've seen it. Sometimes you have a backup and you're really excited about him, but you haven't seen him in a game yet. And there's some unknowns, but now we've seen both of these guys in an actual football game, and that certainly makes you feel a little bit better.
Coach, how about the running backs? You rotated 4 guys, all getting a considerable amount of carries. You had Josh Hicks going over 100 yards for the third time in his career, kind of picking up where he left off after his Quick Lane Bowl MVP. Paul James back for the first time in a year, and boy, his patience really seemed to jump out to me, at least, right out of the gate. It's back and it's there.
Absolutely, and Paul's all the way back, and that's exciting for us because he's such a talented football player. It's a talented room, and we're going to continue to play all those players because every one of them will have a role in the game. And if we're fortunate enough that we stay healthy at that position, we're going to get to the midway point in the season, a little bit later in the season, and we're going to have a fresh stable of running backs, which really is something a little bit unique, I think, in college football. So, again, it's one of the more talented positions on our team, led by Paul James, who's one of our captains, but Josh Hicks, the MVP from the bowl game, Robert Martin, who was having a great bowl game until he pulled his hamstring, and Justin Goodwin, thank you. And Justin, who did a phenomenal job on third down, catching the ball out of the backfield, running the football, and being a great pass protector. They're all going to have very definitive roles as we go through the season.
Wait, when you have some of the guys who can carry the load like that, how do you pick the rotation, or is it just the guy with the hot hand that day?
That what we did in the first game was we rolled them through.
Yeah.
And I didn't, at any point, I didn't feel like we were losing anything by doing that. And that's my plan going forward is we're going to continue to do that. They're all talented players. They know they all need to get their opportunities, and we'll deal with some of those other things as the season goes on.
Let's get to our first phone call of the night. We've got a couple lined up already. We will start with Charlie in Woodbridge. Charlie, you are up first on the Kyle Flood Show. How are you?
Hi, Coach Flood.
How you doing, Charlie?
Element here. Oh, fantastic. I'm actually part of John Nathan's staff, the event staff. I work the game.
I appreciate that.
And I just wanted to ask a question. And the question is in regards to recruiting. We're hearing more and more about Urban Meyer comes to New Jersey, Franklin comes to New Jersey. Are we extending our recruiting area to maybe like Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, etc.?
One of the things, to answer your question, one of the things I think we are very fortunate to have at Rutgers and in our recruiting area, which we call the state of Rutgers, which always begins in New Jersey, is a highly populated area with a lot of really good football players. So right now, our recruiting footprint, southeastern New York, eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, the D.C. area, down to Florida, and always beginning and ending with the state of New Jersey. That's our footprint. There's a more than enough players for us to choose from there. The only time we will really expand that area is when we have a built-in relationship, some type of natural relationship. So we've done some stuff in Ohio over the last year, but those things take time. And the reason we've done it, though, is we have an offensive line coach in Mitch Browning who's recruited that area for over 20 years. And we have an offensive coordinator in Ben McDaniels, whose dad is in the High School Hall of Fame in Ohio and grew up in, going to Canton McKinley, one of the storied programs in all of Ohio. So when you expand your recruiting areas, we do it with a purpose. And I think we have a reason to do that, and that's why we've gone to Ohio.
We appreciate the phone call, Charlie. Let's get to another one. That's Mike in Cedar Grove. You are up next. Mike on the Kyle Flood Show. How are you?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine. Hey, Coach Flood, congratulations on a win last week.
I appreciate that,
Chuck
Mike.
Coming up. Great. Hey, my buddy and I have been season ticket holders for 40 years. We've had the same 2 seats right behind the Rutgers bench. And we're talking that come October 10th, I hate to put some pressure on you, but we're pretty confident we're going to be undefeated when Michigan State comes to town.
October 10th. All right, now listen. You got to listen to more of my press conferences. We are focused on being 1-0 this week. The whole schedule is very exciting, and that's ultimately going to be the future of Rutgers football because we're in the Big Ten now, and there's always going to be great programs that are going to come visit us at High Point Solution Stadium. And when we get to those games, we'll be really excited about it right now. But our focus is entirely on being 1-0 this week, and I certainly am not going to deviate from that.
You with us, Mike? I guess we lost Mike, but he also had a question about Leonte Carew, and that's where I was headed next. First of all, were you aware of this streak that Leonte's had the last 3 years? The first time he has touched the ball in each of the last 3 seasons, it has gone for a touchdown. We know 2 years ago it happened out at Fresno State. Last year, first play of the season from scrimmage, 78 yards from Gary Nova against Washington State. And then again the other day, his first catch in the second half. Were you aware of that?
Well, I think, it really just leads to one question. Who was the coach in 2012 that didn't throw him a touchdown? I feel like I'm personally responsible for not putting him out there and throwing it in the end zone. No, I was not aware of it. I actually became aware of it afterwards. And, I remember last year after the first play of the Washington State game when it went in the end zone, being on the offensive headset and saying to Coach Friedgen, welcome back to college football. Apparently he hadn't lost his touch. But no, I was not aware of that. It's an interesting streak. I don't know if there's really any other like that one. I've never heard of that.
And as they talk about big plays, I actually got a few tweets from students asking me, could they extend the $100,000 prize to the second half when Jadarian Gray took it for a touchdown?
Or maybe just a thousand or something.
Exactly, a little something. It was funny that I got asked that, Coach. So they were like, can you ask Coach Flood? I said, I promise I will.
Well, I'll let you in on a story that's, sometimes there's some more enjoyable moments on the sideline. After he's returned it for a touchdown, I grabbed him and I said, Jadarian, you're going to be the first guy in the history of college football to return a kickoff for a touchdown, and you just made about 10,000 students really mad at you because you didn't do it in the first half.
It might have almost been easier to live with for those guys if he hadn't done it at all. But obviously, we saw what Jadarian's all about yet again, and a fantastic run back, especially when it was a shorter kick. He had to come up. I thought Coach very patient in making sure that he was going to have control of the football because it bounced a couple of times, and sometimes I would think in that spot you get a little anxious.
No, he did a good job. Was very composed. I knew that from the beginning. People would ask me questions a couple of years ago. How comfortable are you with a true freshman returning punts? And to me, it was never an issue because he's been doing it his whole life. We certainly would prefer he catch him in the air because when a kickoff hits the ground, he can go anywhere and you can have chaos. But he did a nice job of getting a hold of it and then allowing some things to materialize in front of him. And then once he gets in the open field, it's going to be very hard to get him on the ground.
Yeah, not going to lie, Coach. I would have fell on the ball.
Defensively, Coach, outstanding job against the run game. Limited them to, I believe, -3 yards rushing on 23 carries for the day. In particular, was that the one thing that really stood out to you? What caught your eye the most in the defensive side?
Well, there are certain things that we look at every week that we know when we hit certain numbers, we got a really good chance of winning the game. Now, I don't know that we ever go into a game expecting to hold a team to negative yards rushing. I think that's a tremendous effort on the part of the defense. But we know when we play really good run defense, if we can hold the team to a certain amount of run yards, our chances of winning the game really, really go up. So that's part of where we start our methodology, on defense. But I was really happy with how they ran to the ball. I was really happy with the aggressiveness we played with on defense. And now we just got to build on that as we go forward.
And speaking of defense, how can you talk about the performance of JPO out there, coming into three-tech position and things that he's done and getting to see on the field, Seemed like he was in the backfield every single play out there, Coach.
One of the more improved players on our team and a guy who had one of the better training camps of anybody on the football team. He brings it every day. He's got such a high motor. He's such a high-energy guy. He really is fun to watch at practice, and I was really excited for him to have that kind of performance.
We'll take our first time out, and our telephone number, once again, 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-356-6344. Give us a call. If you're in attendance here at Quaker Steak and Lube in Edison, come on up front. We encourage you to get involved and get your question into Coach. We've got a microphone set up here, and you can also tweet us your questions at Rutgers Radio. The Scarlet Knight has a question, but
he's going to need a whiteboard.
Yeah, well,
I'm about to say, does he talk?
Anyway, we want you to be a part of it. We're here until 8:30, so stay with us. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
They're all about the perks, like getting $300 credit per line when you switch to AT&T with a smartphone trade-in and purchase of any smartphone on AT&T Next. That's 3 perks in one. Get all the perks when you switch to the network with the nation's strongest 4G LTE signal. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Limited time. Each $300 requires a port-in, eligible purchase, activation, and trading. $100 bill credit within 90 days. $200 trading credit or promo card. Taxes, fees, restrictions apply. Claim based only on national carriers' average 4G LTE signal strength. See store for details.
Hey, Rutgers season ticket holders, are you tired of sitting on those hard bleachers with no back support? Then we have a deal for you. For a limited time, you can reserve a night cushion for only $60 for the season. That's less than $9 a game. Permanently attached to your ticket location, night cushions provide padded comfort for your back and bottom that's second to none. So don't wait. Visit nightcushion.com. That's nightcushion with a K.com. Or call 800-729-0445 to reserve today.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
Consider the cup holder. There's probably one feeling empty next to you right now. No Pepsi, no hope. Just look at it, won't you? All across the country, cup holders are being neglected. Instead of Pepsi, they're being filled with loose change or crumpled up receipts. But you can help. Get a Pepsi and refresh a cup holder's life. Our thirsts are counting on it. In fact, I'm having one right now. That is refreshing. Pepsi, refresh yourself. Refill your cup holder.
When it comes to football, you want your favorite players to stay healthy and on top of their game. Well, AmeriHealth New Jersey wants the same thing for its members and their families. That's why AmeriHealth New Jersey believes the more you know about your insurance options, the less stress you'll feel. No one cares more about keeping New Jersey healthy, and no one is doing more to keep rates affordable. AmeriHealth New Jersey has you covered. Learn more at AmeriHealthNJ.com. AmeriHealth New Jersey is a proud partner of Rutgers Athletics.
We're back at Quaker Steak and Lube on Route 1 in Edison, New Jersey for the first edition in 2015 of the Kyle Flood Show. Chris Carlin, Eric LeGrand, and the head coach of the Scarlet Knights, Kyle Flood. Be a part of the program, 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-356-6344. Tweet us at Rutgers Radio, and if you're in attendance, come on up front, and we will get you on to get your question for the coach as the Scarlet Knights prepare for Washington State. They're coming east after a tough loss last week to Portland State by a final count of 24-17. Last year, Rutgers had a thrilling season-opening win out at Washington State, more accurately in Seattle, at the Quest Field out there, a game in which Rutgers took away a victory at 41-38. Jonathan Aiken with a big play in that game, breaking up a pass with River Craycraft at the end to help seal the win for Rutgers. Paul James, 173 yards, 3 touchdowns rushing in that game. So, Coach, as you get ready this week for Mike Leach and for the Washington State air raid offense, what are the things that jump out of their first effort? They've got a new quarterback who got a little banged up last week in Luke Falk, but it looks like he's going to be able to go.
Yeah, I think Coach Leach said he was 100%. So, we expect to see him, but I did get a question today about the difference between what happens if it's Luke Falk or what happens if it's their backup, and I don't think anything happens. I think they run their system. They are a system offense. Coach Leach has been running this system since back at Texas Tech, probably since he was the offensive coordinator for Bob Stoops at Oklahoma years and years ago. And he's got a system, and he believes in. Nobody coaches that air raid offense better than he does. Nobody has been as prolific in the passing game over the last 15 years as he has. So we've got a tremendous amount of respect for him and what he does. And to maybe simplify the explanation, really what they're trying to do is spread the field horizontally and vertically to create one-on-one matchups with their skilled people on your defenders, because they feel like one-on-one they're going to win those matchups. And on defense, you got to be in great position. You got to make sure you tackle really well. And ultimately, you got to make sure you get extra hats to the ball. You got to really run to the ball, and we pride ourselves on swarming to the football, and we plan on doing it on Saturday.
And how hard is it to game plan for such an air attack? You want to be run stop, of course, first defense, but when you get those one-on-one matchups, how hard is it to actually game plan and get that actually done in practice?
It's very unique because it's not what you do. It's akin to almost preparing for the option, where you have to really create a scout team to do something that's completely different than what you do. And this is similar, but not the same. We certainly throw the ball and we do things out of 4 wide sets. So I think we can simulate this maybe a little bit more naturally than we can the option. But it's still very difficult because the patterns are different. The route combinations are different. The timing is different. The splits of the offensive line are different. The run game is different. So our players have done a good job so far this week of really focusing in on all those little details of the game plan to try to be effective on Saturday.
Yeah, he made an interesting comment during training camp that I frankly was shocked by, and you look at how things shook out in week 1 for them, and it seemed like he stood by it, and that was, he said he wanted to run the football more, and they did that. They rolled 3 running backs last week, and I believe the breakdown was somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% running, 60% passing, which for them is nowhere near what they normally do.
No, it's probably about 20% more run than what they've done in the past.
Now, with that in mind, they did have a bad weather game. So when you watch the tape, do you see the concentrated effort, or do you think that was more a focus, more just a focus of what came out of that weather?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think you had the weather aspect of it, that's for sure. And if you look at how Portland State played the game, there were quite a few times they only had 5 defenders in the box. And I was fortunate early in my career. I worked in the run and shoot, and it was a very interesting experience to work in that system. And part of being in that system was if there was 5 in the box, you wanted to run the ball. If there were 6 in the box, you wanted to throw the ball. And what that really meant was that from the tackle area to the tackle area and to the linebacker depth, how many defenders are in there. And Portland State lined up quite a bit with just 5 in the box. And I don't know this because I wasn't calling the plays, certainly for Washington State, but if they had run-pass checks in the system, the box count would lead to more runs, which is what you got.
What challenges do you see on the defensive side of Washington State?
Making sure you win the one-on-ones. You got to make sure you win the one-on-ones. There's a fair amount of screens, slip screens, bubble screens, jailbreak screens, slow screens to the back. There's a fair amount of screens that you got to make sure your defensive lineman can retrace and get involved in. Winning the one-on-ones when they throw their 3-step because the ball comes out pretty quickly, and then ultimately finding ways to pressure the quarterback. The best way to stop some of these passes is to make sure you can move the quarterback off his spot and pressure the quarterback, and if we can do that, it'll help us play better defense.
We have our first question of the night in attendance here at Quaker Steak and Lube, Route 1 in Edison. This young man ready to go. Young man, what's your name? Where are you from?
I'm Jack Napoli from Piscataway, New Jersey.
All right. What's your question for Coach?
Are you guys going to keep Laviano in as starting quarterback full-time, or are you going to split the time between the two?
All right. Let me ask you this now. Were you sent up here by the local media? I feel like this is a setup of some kind. They've been trying to get this information out of me all week. Here's what I'll tell you. Chris Laviano is our starting quarterback. We're really fortunate to have Hayden on the team with us. I don't want any player on my team to ever worry that if he makes a mistake, we're going to yank him out of the game. So that's certainly not going to be the way we're going to go forward. Chris is our starting quarterback, and we got to give him an opportunity to learn and grow within that process. This guy's he's got a career now. He's going to be an investigative journalist.
That's the best question of the night so far,
It
frankly.
really is.
With that in mind for Chris.
I'm just happy he's focused on this game.
He wants to talk about this week and not changing it up because he's worried about 1-0.
That's right.
For Chris, that's got to be, a very, very important part of this, I would think, because you said not looking over your shoulder, and we've seen it so many times in so many different places where you have two guys that are capable of playing and one's almost afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah, and I think that's a tough place for a player to be. It's hard. Eric, you can speak to this as a former player. I think it's hard to put a player out there and then say, hey, if anything goes wrong, you're out of here. Playing this game at this level is hard enough. There's enough competition between you trying to do what you're supposed to do and the other guy who's trying to keep you from doing it. When guys are looking over their shoulder, I don't think it leads to really maximum performance, which is what we're trying to get at them as coaches. What do you think, Eric?
It is, when you're out there as a player, you don't want to be worried about that making a mistake. You're trying to worry about actually reading the keys and seeing what you have to do. What you have to do. If you make a mistake, like, dang, I'm gonna have to come out the game. So yeah, being able to go out there and be confident, and not just letting loose and being able to read your keys, it's fine. But I wanted to ask you, Coach, now you have the two quarterbacks and everything, and now the wide receivers, I'm sure, have developed a relationship with both of them. Now you go with Chris. How do you think that's going to work out now? Just developing, the relationships now, knowing that that's going to be your guy going forward, instead of having to, worry about two different other ones.
Well, they're both getting work in practice. The backup doesn't get as much work as the starter, but they're both getting work in practice. And I think over the summer, that 9-week summer program, the receivers have thrown with both quarterbacks so much. I really do think there's a comfort level.
We have another question from a gentleman in attendance here with his daughter as well. Sir, what's your name and what's her name?
Hi, my name is Jay, and this is Delaney. She's a cheerleader in training.
Hey, Delaney. I think my daughter has a very similar outfit.
And I was just curious, with the move to the Big Ten, we're seeing bigger and bigger crowds at High Point Solutions. And being that it's probably more of a marketing function, but I think it puts a premium on the game day experience for fans. So I was curious, being that you're sort of the figurehead of the program, do you have any input into the game day experience?
I have some input in certain aspects of it. I'm certainly not there for the pregame part of it. My wife is. I could ask her and see how she feels about it. A lot of the feedback I've gotten in terms of the game day experience has been really positive. Do you have something that we're not doing that you're looking for?
Well, I have a number of things.
Let me get out a pen.
But, all right, hang on a second here. All right, here's what we're going to do. I think the fans' reaction to what our game day experience is important to us. Hasim Phillips is right behind you. He's my director of media relations. He's not really my director of fan experience, but he can get the messages to Jeff Brown, who's our marketing director and I guess the unofficial director of the fan experience, and make sure hopefully we can implement some of the things that you're looking for.
To put it simply, when people leave the game, I want them to go home and take a shower and have to wash the jersey off of them.
I like that. Here's the fan experience I want. I want every fan to leave, and we're 1-0. That's my fan experience.
Me too. Thanks.
That'd work just fine. Coach, our first question on Twitter comes from one of the best Rutgers fans I know. That's John Newman, at John New, checking in.
John Newman of Twitter fame.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on the play of the two middle linebackers in the game last week?
I'm really excited about Kwan Lewis, and I think as the season goes on, he's going to get better and better because he's going to play in our system. He comes to us with experience playing on a big stage at the Division I level, and every week is another week where he's more and more familiar with what we do on defense. So I thought Kwan did a really nice job, and Isaiah Johnson continues to get better. He's working really hard. He did an excellent job on the kickoff team, and those things. I don't ever say those things in a way where they're less important, because to me they're extremely important. That our kickoff coverage team as a whole, and Isaiah Johnson in particular, were tremendous on Saturday. They did a phenomenal job, and if we can continue to get that kind of buy-in on special teams, we got a chance to be a good football team.
And I always wondered that, Coach, when you get a transfer player and when they had learned something totally different before, how hard is it to get them adjusted to what you're doing, especially if they're going to really get substantial playing time out there?
You got to make sure it's the right type of guy, and for those one-year transfer guys that we've had over the last couple of years, we've been fortunate. I think we've done a good job of finding the right people first, people who can fit in the locker room. And when you spend 3 or 4 years in another locker room and all of a sudden you're in our locker room, it could be a little bit different. But Kawana's done a great job of fitting in and being a great teammate, just like Andrew Terzilli did, just like R.J. Dill did. We've had quite a few of those guys just like Lou Toller did. Quite a few of those guys who have really helped us win football games the last couple of years. But it starts with being the right person, because it's not an easy situation to do. But if you can find the right person and they've got the talent and the skill set, they got a chance to be successful, and I believe Kawan does.
Let's step aside. We'll take our second break. Our telephone number, 855-FLOOD-44, 855-356-6344. Get your questions in for Coach Flood as Rutgers prepares for Washington State. We are at Quaker Steak and Lube on Route 1 in Edison. You cannot beat the wings. You just can't do it.
I think Miss Karen's got a cheeseburger over there waiting for Big E here.
Well, maybe we should extend this break just a little bit. We'll step aside. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
Kickstart. 3 bros are about to become more than just a bunch of couch brotatoes. The energizing blast of dew and juice is entering their mouths. Soon they'll be sliding across the dance floor as if it was strewn with appeals of bro-nanas. Then this trio of bromios will recite sweet broetry into the ears of any dame that will listen. These guys are bro-fessionals. Let's do this. We're coming, world! It all starts with a kick. Mountain Dew Kickstart. With dew, juice, and just the right amount of kick. Now available in 6 flavors that taste good.
Do you have chronic pain? Dr. Demesman of University Pain Medicine Center is a double board certified interventional pain specialist, selected top doctor by New Jersey Monthly for 6 consecutive years, and is an official partner of Rutgers Athletics. Demesman and his partners perform cutting-edge, minimally invasive procedures to help reduce back and neck pain, sciatica, hip pain, and other sports-related pain conditions. To make an appointment, call 732-875-3050 or visit upmcnj.com. Remember, fans, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
You know where to tune in for the game, but do you know how to bring the game home to you? When it comes to commemorating the experience, IMGProducts.net has you covered. IMGProducts.net is the place to go for official programs and yearbooks from NCAA championships, conference tournaments, and many of the nation's top universities. Relive games and championships for years to come with quality programs containing stats, behind-the-scenes stories, history, and much, much more. IMGProducts.net. We've got you covered.
Looking for the best trained in the electrical business? Look no further. Our members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local Union 456 go through a 5-year nationally recognized apprenticeship program along with OSHA safety certifications, producing the best trained and most up-to-date electricians in the area. Fiber optics, high voltage, lighting retrofits, solar energy, healthcare facilities, school construction, data centers. We do it all. We are also proud to be one of the first building trades locals to be recognized with a drug-free workplace program. We at Local Union 456 are like Coach Flood and the Scarlet Knights, trained and proven to get the job done.
We are back at Quaker Steak and Lube in Edison, New Jersey on Route 1. It is this week's edition, the first of 2015 for the Kyle Flood Show. Chris Carlin alongside Eric LeGrand and Rutgers head coach Kyle Flood. Rutgers hosting Washington State this coming Saturday, High Point Solution Stadium. It is a 3:30 kickoff. And, you know, Coach, you had the student section full early this past week for the opener. And we have seen the impact that they can have on a football game, not just in terms of, you know, the energy that they bring and how that pumps up the players, because we've heard about them talk about that consistently, but also the idea that when you get that cranked up, that noise can really, really be a factor, and you're going against a team that does an awful lot of the play calling at the line of scrimmage. That could certainly help.
Absolutely. And we're facing a no-huddle attack, and you always count on being at home in terms of disrupting, you know, what those kind of teams can do at the line of scrimmage. And I don't think it'll be any different this week. Our crowd has been tremendous. The student section was phenomenal last week. And as I said in the post game, certainly well motivated to be in their seats early, you know, for that opening kickoff. I had a chance to address the freshmen before school started, and you know, I was explaining to them that, you know, not only do we have this contest going on where if we return the first kickoff return of the game for a touchdown, to 100 students get $1,000 each. I said, but we've actually got a guy who does it. And Janarian made me right. And he didn't make me right on the first one, But I know the fans will be back in again this week to make sure they have their opportunity. And when that student section gets cranked up, it builds momentum in the entire stadium. And there's no doubt that becomes our 12th man, and that becomes a disruptive force for anybody who we're playing against.
Yeah, as a player, you always love getting amped up with the crowd and getting them all into the game. I want to know, how does that affect the coach while you're play calling and everything and you make a big third down stop? Do you want to run up to the crowd to get them going?
I did it a couple of years ago when we played.
I remember that. I do remember that.
Because I really felt like they were having an effect on the quarterback, and I wanted to make sure they knew it. And it worked out pretty good for us that day. So hopefully we can get that going again this Saturday.
Let's hit the phones once again. Our telephone number 855-FLOOD-44. Eric in the Fords is up next on the Kyle Flood Show. Eric, how are you?
Hey guys, how's it going? Hey Coach.
How you doing, Eric?
Before I get to my question, I want to give a quick plug. Eric, I just got a chance to read your book. I know it's been a couple years too late, Believe, and I think every Rutgers fan should really go out and get a copy of this if they haven't already.
Better late as never.
Okay, and Coach, my question for you.
Even though it's late, he still gets his royalties. Don't worry about it.
Hey, Coach, my question for you. When you have a home game, towards the end of the week, is there any pregame ritual? Do you go out to a certain place for dinner, get your hair cut? Like, is there a certain thing you do when you're home for that week, like before a home game?
Yeah, I go wherever my wife tells me.
Smart ritual.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best ritual possible. No, I don't. I'm not a superstitious guy. I'll leave that to the baseball guys.
Okay.
The only, I guess, routine that I have is I run the morning of the game about 90 minutes before the team breakfast. And that's about the only ritual that I have.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the call, and good luck on Saturday, guys.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate the telephone call, Eric. Up next, Scott in Marstown is on the Kyle Flood Show. Scott, how you doing? Scott, are you with us?
I'm here.
There he is. Right. Scott, how are you?
Well, yeah, it's good. Good to hear from you guys. It's been a while. Obviously, Scott from the Riot Squad.
Hey, Scott. Hey.
I want to say. Well, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. And I missed the first show of last year's show, and we ended up doing pretty well. So hopefully we can do it again.
All right.
I like the way that sounds.
My question is about, So my question is about kind of the embarrassment of riches we have at running back right now. And Coach, I know you were asked about this at Monday's press conference, so I apologize for being a little redundant, but I'm wondering, given what we're seeing, the offense we're seeing this week, could we maybe see eventually this year Justin Goodwin move back to cornerback? Maybe once Desmond Peoples gets back, give true freshman Charles Snowy a little run. He looks really impressed on film. Can you take advantage of all the depth we have at running back and maybe take some pressure off those young DBs?
Well, everything's on the table every week, and we're going to make every decision based on what we think gives us the best opportunity to be 1-0. But I would tell you, I would remind people, there is no such thing as an embarrassment of riches when you're talking about talent at a particular position. And, we got to the bowl game last season, and by the end of the bowl game, there really were only 2 running backs that were healthy, by the end of the game. And that's just the attrition that happens during a football season. So, we're fortunate right now that we've got pretty good health at that position. Not completely healthy, but pretty good health. And we're going to keep playing all those guys at running back right now because they're making the difference for us.
Good stuff.
All right, great. Good luck.
I expect to see you next week, Scotty.
I'll be here. I'll do my best.
All right. Our good friend Scott Logan from the Riot Squad last year. Coach, some of the other things that come up as you prepare moving on from week 1 into week 2, you went through all this time in training camp, and I want to go back to that for just a moment. How did this year's camp kind of compare to camps of the last few years in terms of everything that a coach wants to get accomplished? I know none of them are ever going to be fully satisfied that you got everything done.
Yeah, and quite often they always feel the same way. You start off in the beginning of training camp, and you feel like you have all this time. You've got 4 weeks before the first game, and then you snap your fingers and training camp's over, and you're in game week. And we got everything in that we had planned on getting in. So from an installation standpoint, we were able to keep the installation rolling, even though it's a little bit tricky when we rep 2 quarterbacks the way that we did. But ultimately, you would always like to have more time, more reps, the ability to do more situational work. But that's just not the reality of what college football is. And now as we go into the season, we got to make sure that each week when we plan it out, we're still hitting on all those little situational details, that maybe we only hit on once or twice in training camp because that was all the time we had for it.
And when you come to making a plan for training camp, I know you have a method or a plan already that you want to follow by, but do you take different opinions from your coaching staff on what things that you could do in different situations that you may run into during the season?
Absolutely, I'm very fortunate. I've got a really talented staff with guys who've experienced college football at a lot of different places, and some guys have experienced pro football. So we try to take some of those ideas too and see which ones will really work for us. And one of the things I've learned over time is every year is different. Every team is different. Every team needs a little something different. So you can't just take the template for training camp and say, hey, this is how we do it, because this year's team might need something a little bit different than last year's team does. And this year we were much younger on the offensive line. So I felt like we needed to do more things with that group than we did last year, because last year's group was very much an experienced group.
Coach, got a good question here on Twitter. It's from Jim Hoffman. And I don't know that there are many teams many coaches better equipped to answer this than you. Does the cross-country performance or the cross-country trip affect your performance? Does it cause a drop-off? Did you see it last year or even the last couple of years when you have gone against the teams like Fresno State and Washington State?
I've only experienced it going east to west.
Right.
And I remember one of the years I was at Hofstra, back in the FCS days. We actually played 3 games on the West Coast that year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's very unusual at that level of football. But we ended up playing 3 games, and I felt like we had a really good plan to handle that situation, and we did pretty well. We ended up winning 2 of the games, and the other game we lost, but it was a close game. So I'm very comfortable with how to do that. I do think it's an advantage when it's the first game of the year. If you have the ability to plan for it in training camp, to go out 2 days early, to get acclimated like we did. We went out 2 days early last year. We had a practice out at the Seahawks facility last year that we were able to arrange, and then prepare for the game. We really kept the same format 2 years in a row. I thought we played well 2 years ago. We came up a little bit short with Fresno. I thought we played well last year, ultimately won the game. So going east to west, I feel very comfortable. Going west to east is different. And I've never experienced it, so I really can't speak to it. But I've heard people tell me that it's a different kind of travel, because you're not gaining the hours, you're losing the hours.
That's what I was going to say. Vice versa, even though it won't happen, would you try to go out there 2 days before if you were traveling west to east? I know that won't happen, but just saying, in general.
My experience tells me yes. If I was going to do it, if that was something that came into play, I'd have to talk to some people who've done it. I've never been in that situation, but my gut tells me yes.
We'll step aside. We've got more to do until 8:30. Give us a call at 855-FLOOD-44, 855-356-6344, and you can tweet us your questions at Rutgers Radio. That's at Rutgers Radio. Also, if you're in attendance here at Quaker Steak and Lube, please come on up front and look for our man Jimmy. He will get you situated and get you on the air to ask Coach your question. We're in Edison, Route 1. It's Quaker Steak and Lube, and it is the Kyle Flood Show.
Hey, Chris Carlin here, and as the voice of your Rutgers Scarlet Knights, I see the fans' passion for our hometown team come to life every Saturday in the fall. UPS shares this same passion for helping businesses turn a challenge into a solution, because they're not just in the shipping business, they're in the problem-solving business. Visit ups.com/solvers to see how UPS can help your team find the winning formula. UPS, official logistics company of Rutgers Athletics.
You know where to tune in for the game, but do you know how to bring the game home to you? When it comes to commemorating the experience, imgproducts.net has you covered. imgproducts.net is the place to go for official programs and yearbooks from NCAA championships, conference tournaments, and many of the nation's top universities. Relive games and championships for years to come with quality programs containing stats, behind-the-scenes stories, history, and much, much more. imgproducts.net. We've got you covered.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
This commercial is brought to you by Brother International, the makers of fax, printers, multifunction printers, scanners, sewing, and embroidery machines. Brother is always at your side.
You can make business cards with your name, print from hiking, hang in frames, sew some shades, block the sun, keep out creepy peeping toms. With Brother at your side, always good times. You got a brother at your side, and whatever follows always ends up in good times. You can make a basket cover for brothers, so they both match. No more mess, make the best. Label all relieve that stress. Brothers always undercover and always around. 106 years, better keep on counting. You got a brother at your side, and whatever follows always ends up in good time. With the brother at your side, with the brother at your side.
We're back on the Kyle Flood Show. We are at Quaker Steak and Lube on Route 1 in Edison, our new home for 2015. As I said, you cannot go wrong with the wings here. They are, and you have so many choices. You and I got to talk about this later,
So
Eric.
I was just chewing on French fries. You just came back with
Oh,
it.
we
I
might
thought for a second Karen LeGrand was going to do a guest spot with us here on the show. Come on. I'll put you right in.
I don't need to lose my job. Coach, we have another question or two on Twitter, actually two of them, so let's get to them. Chris Nowalski, Coach, what did you think of the offensive line performance this past Saturday? You touched on it a little bit already, but you've got those three new starters up there.
Yeah, I'm pleased. I'm pleased with how they played. Similar to the young secondary, I thought they got better as the game went on. But I think we can do more. Statistically, it looks really good. 291 yards rushing, no sacks. I mean, that's a good day statistically. But as you really examine the film, I think there's a lot of places where we can get better, and that's where we're working towards. And as we go through the season, we're going to need to keep improving.
Yeah, knowing that you put up those stats and everything and look statistically good, knowing that you can get better and better, how does that make you feel as a coach, especially a former line coach?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting because I look at the film and I say, all right, hey, we could do this better. We could do this better. But you're right. There is what we actually did, which was impressive. So I'm excited about the upside of that group. I do believe we've got 5 starters, although I do want to continue to play some of those other guys, the guys like Tariq Cole, the guys like Marcus Applefield, who I really think are coming on, because I saw how that helped J.J. Denman last year. Even though J.J. wasn't a starter, we kind of got him in here and there during the season, and now we're reaping the benefits of that this year.
And I think the thing that's probably most impressive about them is it's not like these are young guys. They've been in the program here for a couple of years.
Exactly right. And again, some of those guys not with a lot of starts under their belt, but Derek Nelson is a 4th-year player for us. Dorian Miller's a 3rd-year player for us. J.J. Denman's a 4th-year player for us. So these are guys we've got a lot invested in them.
Another question from Twitter, Coach. This is from Donna. Do you feel the size of Rutgers' defensive line is sufficient to compete with elite Big Ten teams?
I do, but now we got to go out and do it, and we're not at that point in the season yet where we're playing those teams because we got Washington State coming to town. But I think we are a bigger, more explosive version of what we've been the last couple of years. So we'll be excited for those challenges when they come up. But right now, that's not our focus.
And I got to see a little bit of that when I came out to practices. I said, "Wow, coach, these guys look a lot bigger than when I was here. Coming in now at 285 and things like that. So that just goes off into recruiting and finding the right guys to fit in the right system, right?
No doubt, and you can't sacrifice what we need to play our defense just for size. So we've got some guys like Sebastian Joseph who maybe are a little bit bigger than what we've played with in the past, but still explosive athletes that will allow us to do what we want to do on defense.
What has recruiting been like? Have you noticed any kind of a difference in response or just attitudes in general after you've spent an entire year in the conference and you had the first-year success that you did?
Yeah, sure. I think that's absolutely the case. Last year when we were going through the recruiting process, the recruits were still getting to know us as a Big Ten football team. They didn't know what we would look like as a Big Ten football team. Well, now they know. I mean, they watched us last year. They watched us in some great wins. They watched us in a bowl game and a dominating performance. So now the recruits this year, they have an idea of what we look like as a Big Ten football team, and I think it's helped us.
And I want to talk about recruits. Everyone always wants to talk about the 4- and 5-star recruits. How much evaluation does it go watching a guy who's a 2-star player but can really turn out to be a first-round draft pick for you? How much evaluation does that go into the offseason, into a recruiting process, and deciding if you're going to offer that guy or not?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into it, and I think recruiting is a lot more complicated than people want to think. I think sometimes people say, all right, you go out and you recruit and you get a great player and this is what happens. Yep. I just don't think that's how it works. You got to find the players that are right for your program. You got to find the players that are right for your culture, and certainly we want explosive athletes. But we've got guys on our team, and we've had guys in our past that some guys have been really highly rated recruits, and they've done really well, and they've been first-round draft picks. And we've had other guys like Devin McCourty, who wasn't one of the more highly touted recruits in our program, but ultimately becomes a first-round draft pick, a captain for a Super Bowl championship team. Because ultimately it's about the right fit. It's about having the right people for your culture.
And Jason went and had a pretty darn good career, too, and is still having it. And he picked up some bucks along the way as well.
They're both doing pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, they're not too bad. When Devin this past offseason had about half the league chasing him down, trying to sign him to a contract. We've got another question on Twitter. This one is from Marie. Coach, how excited are the cornerbacks to take on the air raid?
I think the defense as a whole is excited about the challenge of defending this system. This is one of the more prolific systems in the history of college football, and we have a very healthy respect for it. But if you've got the right players in your program, they're excited about the challenge of going against it.
You touched on it briefly. It's not just the fact that they're trying to create as many one-on-ones as they can, but they are getting to the line so quickly. They're calling the plays at the line. I guess it might be an obvious question, but I'm guessing that communication might be one of the most important things here when you're trying to line up.
Yeah, I thought this happened a couple of years ago. The advent of the no-huddle offense has really mandated the advent of the no-huddle defense. Mm-hmm. And everybody's dealing with it now. We're almost more unique in what we do than some of these spread teams are. And, we saw it in the bowl game when we played North Carolina. They're a no-huddle, up-tempo team. Indiana's a no-huddle, up-tempo team. We played Washington State last year. So I don't think it's as unusual anymore for defenses to prepare for as it was maybe 5 to 7 years ago.
That's amazing. That I was thinking that the other day, that actually in the pro-style offense that you run, that's really become more of the surprising offense to see.
Yeah, our conference is probably the last home of the traditional offense, and even to a certain degree, that's moving in different directions as well.
I'm glad you brought up the communication part, as you have two young guys at the corner position. How important is it now getting those reps in practice, trying to get those signals into them so they know exactly what they're doing. I know when I first came in, learning the signals was something I never had to experience before. It's because you lined up in high school, just a regular offense, you called the defense and things like that. But now getting these young guys there, just the second week, how hard is it?
It's critical. It's critical, and you're right. Like, the communication aspect of what you have to do on defense against an offense like this is critical, because if one player ultimately is in the wrong place, it could be a touchdown.
We'll take one more timeout. Get a chance to get a couple of more questions in. If you are here in attendance at Quaker Steak and Luke, by all means, come on up front and get your question in. Your last opportunity coming up, and you can also give us a call at 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-356-6344. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
All about the perks, like getting $300 credit per line when you switch to AT&T with a smartphone trade-in and purchase of any smartphone on AT&T Next. That's 3 perks in one. Get all the perks when you switch to the network with the nation's strongest 4G LTE signal. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Limited time. Each $300 requires a port-in, eligible purchase, activation, and trading. $100 bill credit within 90 days. $200 trading credit or promo card. Taxes, fees, restrictions apply. Claim based only on national carriers' average 4G LTE signal strength. See store for details.
Honey, did you take care of the party rentals yet?
I drove by Miller's Rentals on Route 1, but it looks like they've closed. We'll have to go someplace else.
No. According to Facebook, Miller's moved to a bigger space at 160 Fieldcrest Avenue in Edison, but their phone number hasn't changed. 732-985-3050.
Great. I'll call now.
Miller's Party Rentals, tents, tables, chairs, linen, staging, and more. Now at 160 Fieldcrest Avenue in Edison. 732-985-3050. Visit MillerRentals.com. Like us on Facebook and receive a discount on your first order. Go Millers!
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
Hey, Chris Carlin here, and as the voice of your Rutgers Scarlet Knights, I see the fans' passion for our hometown team come to life every Saturday in the fall. UPS shares this same passion for helping businesses turn a challenge into a solution, because they're not just in the shipping business, they're in the problem-solving business. Visit ups.com/solvers to see how UPS can help your team find the winning formula. UPS, official logistics company of Rutgers Athletics.
Hey, Rutgers season ticket holders, are you tired of sitting on those hard bleachers with no back support? Then we have a deal for you. For a limited time, you can reserve a night cushion for only $60 for the season. That's less than $9 a game. Permanently attached to your ticket location, night cushions provide padded comfort for your back and bottom that's second to none. So don't wait. Visit nightcushion.com. That's nightcushion with a K.com. Or call 800-729-0445 to reserve today.
Last few minutes on the first week's edition of the Kyle Flood Show here on ScarletKnights.com and on 1450 WCTC in New Brunswick. Chris Carlin, Eric LeGrand, and the coach Kyle Flood. You can get your last-minute questions in at 855-FLOOD44 or on Twitter, which is where we will go next. That's at Rutgers Radio. This is from Sam Hellman of Scout. Coach, who is your favorite professional wrestler?
Well, let me start, Sam, by saying that this is really not a media access event. So, but I am, just out of courtesy to you and your training camp Jim the Anvil Neidhart goatee that you were sporting, I am going to answer this question. I actually have 3 wrestlers in particular that I was a fan of growing up. And then I moved away from the world of the WWF or WWE, depending on how old you are. But now, having a 13-year-old son, I've been sucked back into it. And I know the gentleman to my right here, he hangs with some of the WWE superstars as well. He was at the Barclays Center. So I would start by saying this. My favorite 3 wrestlers from when I was growing up were none other than, rest in peace, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, who just passed away shortly. Jimmy Superfly Snuka, who I still remember going off the cage onto Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden. And finally, toward the end of when I was Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yep.
So, and the Bret the Hitman Hart sunglasses were like they were a big deal when I was a younger guy.
I was a Hart Foundation guy.
Yeah.
Love the Hart
Tag
Foundation.
team champions.
Absolutely. Beat Demolition. I'm there, Coach. I know what's going on. And, yeah, E, what about
the
you?
show has gone in a different direction
it really
than I
has.
expected.
It really has.
We're going with it.
I got to see. I'm a little bit younger, so I'm more of a The Rock, Stone Cold, Goldberg, and Sting. Those are my 4. Those are my 4. And Kane as I got a little bit older.
Kane. All right. I'll buy it. I mean, Sam took us in another direction, but that's not all that surprising, to tell you the truth. Before we go, we do have some business to tie up from the end of last week. Our friend to your right celebrated his 25th birthday, Mr. LeGrand.
Quarter century.
Hey, it's been a long time.
So while he did, and I'm not joking here, after the game Saturday, head down to Philadelphia and celebrate it with someone that he shares his birthday with, Beyonce. True?
True. I was about 5 feet away from her running to her van while there was about 35 cops between us.
So we did. Well, there's about 35 cops between us. So we did bring out a cake. The folks from Quaker Steak and Lube have brought out this beautiful cake for you, Eric. And I want to wish you a happy 25th birthday.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Now, are we bringing out Beyonce next?
I don't believe she was able to make it.
That would be great, Coach. If she could come out and sing.
Well, I would ask what you wish for, but I'm assuming it's one of 2 things: to once again run into Beyonce, or to see Rutgers go 1-0 this week.
I was about to say, got to go 1-0 this week, Coach.
That's what I'm talking about.
25 years old. Should we lead a chorus? Should we do this?
I think we should.
I think we should. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eric. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, guys. I'm just glad I don't got to blow out these candles so I don't spit all over the cake. Thank you, guys. I really much appreciate it. 25 years of living, and Hey, here's to the next 25.
That's
Absolutely. Right. Well, congratulations, Eric, and 25th birthday this past weekend. And when he said I heard that from somebody. I brought it up on the broadcast the other day that he's going and hanging out with Beyonce. I mean, it is ridiculous.
Eric's a rock star, and when you hang with rock stars, they hang out with Beyonce. That's what happens.
Well, Coach, it's been a productive first week on the Kyle Flood Show. We're looking forward to next week, and we're looking forward to Rutgers going 1-0 this week against Washington State. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for everybody for coming out here. Our new location here at the Quaker Steak and Lube, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in their seats at 3:30 for kickoff.
Quaker Steak and Lube, Route 1, Edison here in New Jersey. Join us each and every Wednesday night for the Kyle Flood Show. Our thanks to Colin Osborne, Jimmy Gill, Hasim Phillips, of course, Paul Schrager, our producer and engineer, and back in our Rutgers IMG Sports Network studios, John Essick. And boy, the folks from Quaker Steak and Lube could not make us feel more welcome for our first week. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, and we're thrilled to be here all season long. For the coach, Kyle Flood, and Eric LeGrand, I'm Chris Carlin reminding you, Rutgers and Washington State, 3:30 Saturday, High Point Solution Stadium. We'll see you then, everybody. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Kyle Flood Show, live from the Quaker Steak and Lube on US 1 in Edison on the Rutgers IMG Sports Network. The Kyle Flood Show has also been brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world, and by Pepsi. Live in the moment. The beat starts at Pepsi.com. Pepsi, live for now. The executive producer of the Rutgers IMG Sports Network is Ben Sutton. Associate producers Joe Potter, Chris Ferris, and John Willey. Network manager Tim Bickford. I'm staff announcer Carl Shannon. Special thanks to Rutgers Athletic Director Julie Herman, along with the staff and management of flagship station 1450 Talk Radio. WCTC, the voice of Central Jersey. The Kyle Flood Show is an exclusive presentation of IMG, America's home for college sports.